I think the hardest thing for all of us is when we're playing trainings, figuring out how to make them useful online. Especially since I thought there was a way to share my screen, but I'm not seeing it right yet. Enter full screen, that's not it. Anyways, I can kind of mess around with that because ideally, you know, what I think we'll probably do in the future is like if I want to use some PowerPoint or PowerPoint slides, I'll just share it ahead of time so you guys can kind of follow along. As you know, we like to have actual slides on what we're doing so that you have those as resources for your classroom. So if you guys give me 1 second, I'm going to grab some water and then I'll be ready to kind of dive in. You guys talk amongst yourselves.
How's everybody's MKR experience going this year? Have all of you had bands that are going so far this year, or have some? I know some people are maybe starting second semester. Anyone have any successes they want to share? Anybody at all?
Started ukulele at West.
Cool.
Yeah, at Bristol, we played "Rock Around the Christmas Tree" for our holiday concert. So
nice.
One big song.
Very nice.
My classes did Monster Mash for Halloween on guitars.
Awesome.
I've had some musical successes, but we still have not decided on a band name yet. We can't quite come to consensus.
And as everybody knows, that's the right band name that really makes it, right?
Somebody said once, I have some Dead Brownies in my lunch bag, and I thought that would be a great name for a band, Dead Brownies. And also sometimes when people are not eating their fasters, and I heard Nasty Faster, I think that would be another good name, Nasty Faster.
I think that our staff came up with a good one. We had to do HR training, you know, for like when you needed to be mandatorily reporting different things going around the office. And, you know, we had to take these quizzes, and it was always that the character whose name was, I think, Terry, you know, it's like the right answer is always Inform Terry. So I think our band name was Terry and the Informers. That was pretty solid.
That's a good one.
Anything can be a good band name if you just slide right in there, you know. I actually recently found a clip of, I have a short movie that I did with a bunch of friends a long time ago, and the concept was we were playing in a band, and the band's name was ? And people said, well, how do you pronounce it? And we're like, you know, and we thought that was pretty good. That's how the name. Good. Okay, so look, let me dive in just with a little bit of some stuff. First of all, if you haven't heard yet, probably the most exciting thing that has happened and will become more widely available soon is these. Dun, da, 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 da.
Cool.
So now, if you're not familiar with this, one of our big things we've been trying to do over the last 3 years is make the very first ever method book for modern band. And to be very clear what the method book is, any of you guys that ever taught beginning instruments or beginning orchestra using strictly strings or essential elements, you've used a method book before. There's a teacher's version and there's a version for every single student. There has never been something like this for modern band, for any sort of popular music ensemble. Like, you can get things where it's just a bunch of songs and you pass out the parts, but there's never truly been something that's an instructional thing. So we've been working on it, and then we realized why there hasn't been one. It's really hard because you really have to spend a lot of time going through it and finding appropriate resources for all instruments. And, you know, like, to give you like a little bit of an example of some of the problems that we had that made it take so long was, you know, I was the architect of this. So I started with a guitar book and then said, okay, everybody base it off the guitar book. Well, that doesn't really work for the keyboard player or the drummer. And then we started noticing, cool, Scott, you picked a whole bunch of predominantly male-driven rock songs. Because guess what? That's my experience. So, you know, then Spencer, who did the bass book, and Mary, who did the drum book.
It's my dog, sorry.
All right, fess up.
Clearly does not like this conversation.
Jeez Louise.
Whoa.
All right, that's it. Peter's band. That's it.
Anyways, the fact is that once I got the input of the rest of my team, it was much easier to get it together and determine how we were going to do it. But we had to go back to the drawing board. All the skills were there, but they didn't line up. And we wanted to make sure the songs were diverse, because if you've ever, I mean, I don't know what instrument everybody here is, but I know for a fact that guitar players tend to go to different repertoire than drummers do, primarily. And the same thing with keyboard players. Now, bass players, it depends. But we want to make sure we covered all those genres. So currently, the books are mostly done. So these are demo copies. They're in production right now. Everything's been turned in. We're going through a massive amount of edits, but Hal Leonard pretty much thinks that they're going to be done and available in March. So what does that mean? So in March, all the 5 books, there's the 4 instruments and the teacher's manual, they're going to all be available. Each book has audio tracks and video tracks. And what happens when you get the book, it gives you a code for this Hal Leonard site. You go to it, you put it in, and it takes you, and you have all access to all of those. So it's real audio, real jam tracks, videos, so you can see some of the concepts explained by our team of people in the videos, which I don't think you'll actually know any of them, because I think we hired not us to do all of it. I'd have to remember. I think maybe Mary makes some, well, I don't know. Doesn't matter. So basically the book is 12 sections that each section has a bunch of subsections, and they range from like instrumental technique, music theory, comping, improvisation, composition, things like that. 70% of the books are meant to be played together. So in other words, you know, everybody's playing the same thing at the same time. And about 30% of the book is like, you know, maybe the guitarist and the keyboard player has the same thing, but the drummer and the bass have something different. So it's a little bit more independent time. And you as the teachers, hopefully, you know, we like to promote that there's a mixture of the kind of ways you're teaching anyhow. Sometimes they're working with one group while people are working independently. Sometimes they can break off into their own bands, et cetera, et cetera. 9 of the 12 sections end with songs. And so just to get an idea of what some of those songs are, there's a huge list of it on the back of all the songs we actually use. You can see some of that. But like, for instance, the last song in the book, kind of the final, is Zombie by the Cranberries, which is a great 4-chord song that a lot of, especially middle school kids, still love. And I think that, you know, there's like an Adele song is one of them. We have one hip hop song, Lupe Fiasco's Kick Push, which is a great tune about skateboarding. You know, it's got a little bit of a mixture of old to new genres. So primarily that's where the book stands. We are in theory supposed to be having book 2 and 3 ready for publication by January of next year. I'm being cautious when I say that because this book took 2.5, 3 years, and they want us to have 2 more books ready by January. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I've been told it's our goal. So yay! But that will be more intermediate and more advanced stuff. And in terms of why this might be meaningful to you, we haven't determined yet as a staff what we're going to do for our current teachers. I think, like, so for instance, Hal Leonard, we talked to them about selling a teacher's pack, which will have the one of every kind of book. And I think if they're able to do that, what we're planning on doing for future trainings is instead of giving out a teacher's manual, it would be the teacher's pack, and we would provide that. I don't know how that relates to our old teachers yet, but I do know that we're going to definitely purchase some to give to the teachers that are already registered and members of the crew. I just don't have the answer for that yet, but we do have some conversations. I'm hoping that we're going to definitely be able to pair up and do that for the people that have been here and supporting us. And, you know, then ideally, I think what will end up happening is like, you know, if you're a district and you're putting in, like, you have textbook money, you could say, well, I would like to buy, you know, 10 guitar books, 10 keyboard books for each individual student. That's the goal. But it's really up to you. I mean, a lot of you guys, you have your curriculum, you feel like you know what you're doing, and you might want to do it differently. But it's definitely meant to be something. I think back to my own experience as a teacher, and it was very easy for me to make resources for my guitar class and my music theory class. And for me, concert band was like, okay, we have the 6 pieces we're working on this semester. But my beginning instruments class, I had no idea what I was doing and didn't have time to work on it. So I pulled out Standards of Excellence and just put it on everybody's shelf, and we read thing to thing. I know for many of you guys, that's probably your case with modern band, just due to infamiliarity and a lack of like a coherent structure yet. So at the worst, I'm hoping this will give people an idea of what they might want us to do. It's not meant to be a book that, everyone will use all the time forever. It's meant to be a guide, but you can use it forever. And also, I'm hoping that what we're going to start doing is also, the difficulty with doing modern band and popular music in general, of course, is that it changes a lot, right? That the repertoire changes constantly. It's not like I can continue to do Mozart and Beethoven and Bach. Because of that, we're hoping that there will be like a supplemental pack of songs that will come out every 6 months or a year that Hal Leonard's actually publishing. And by that, it will be different than the song charts we release. As you know, when we release song charts, they're basically strum-alongs, right? With just some basic guidelines. That's what we're allowed to do. That's what we can do. We find it's really good for beginners. But for many of you guys, you might be at the point where you're looking for a little bit of extra. These Hal Leonard books, those song packs will be more complex. They'll have melodies, they'll have riffs, et cetera, et cetera. So I will now like to open the floor for any particular questions you may have about these books.
I have
So there
one.
were 4. Oh, sorry.
Go for it.
Well, I just had a question. You said there were 4 books. I wanted to know specifically which instruments, if that included voice or ukulele, or what were the other instruments?
We have drums, bass, guitar, and keyboard, and the teacher's manual. We are, vocals are in, at least for book 1, vocals are in every book. We expect everybody to sing, and we talk about it, and there's a lot of stuff in there about singing. So that was our solution for book 1, but book 2 will have a separate vocal book. Ukulele is the first book that we're gonna add as a supplemental. We're looking in the process right now of finding somebody. We're just gonna pay somebody literally to take the guitar book and rework ukulele in it, change the chords out. So it's not ideal because it's not exactly how the ukulele works, as we all know. Ukulele isn't meant to just be a guitar changed up. But I think for the book 1 stuff, for the introductory stuff, it makes the most sense, and it'll be easy, and we can have it, and it'll make it for people that are using a lot of ukuleles to immediately dive in.
Okay, thanks.
I think we're also, this is still in the air, but there's been talk about coming out with a technology book that isn't like how to use DJing and stuff like that, but it's actually a little bit more like classroom setup and physics and acoustics. So nothing too deep, but like, don't point the amp directly towards the microphone, or how your setup might differ in your classroom versus on stage, and how your setup might be different on stage with monitors and without it. But just like a bunch of things like that, and even more basics for those of us that are not originally electronic music people, like what do the knobs on my amp do? What's the difference between gain and volume? So there's going to probably be some sort of like add-on tech book that we're looking at doing. That's just going to take a little bit more thought and processing.
I'm about to embark on piano with the jam cards. I'm presuming the textbooks would be coordinated with the jam cards.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because we actually just talked about that today, because we still haven't quite figured out how. Like, they're in the books and they're in the videos, but we're like, how do people get the jam cards? So I think that they're going to probably put them on the website.
I already got some on the website. And
Yeah, on ours, but I think what we're going to do is we're going to put them on the Hal Leonard website for the book. So when you download them, you can download and print them. But yes, they use them as well.
Great.
Just with, because there's a solid sort of 10-year age span maybe between our youngest rockers and our oldest ones, how did you guys negotiate that kind of a challenge in terms of how you were structuring the book?
I mean, I'll be honest, it probably works best for the age groups between like 4th grade and 8th grade. It can be used in high school, but high school will probably move very fast, and there's probably a lot of repertoire that the high school people don't necessarily want to play. youngest learners, like, K through 3 probably might struggle just because it might go a little fast, might need some extra teacher stuff. And some of the songs you might choose are a little bit too aggressive, I would say, for kids those young. So that's more or less the way to look at it. But, as always, we anticipate that our teachers are going to try and get a sense for what they like and what they don't like in it. I mean, one of the good things, at least, is like, so for instance, in terms of content, the lyrics are all printed in the book.
Okay.
So that helps. But, like, for instance, I know I had a couple of people that said, well, I work with kindergartners. I don't really want to use a song by a band called the Chainsmokers, which I totally get. And it's something I would never have thought of, because to me, I'm like, oh, it's nothing. Clearly, they don't let me around young children, though. So I think that, there's a little bit of that people are going to have to negotiate.
Yeah. No, I have a 4th grade girl who wants to do a Guns N' Roses song too. So I get that. Yeah.
I mean, it depends which Guns N' Roses song it is, but the lyrics, the name itself can be problematic, I'm sure. Even though it's Maine, I thought that everybody carries a gun in Maine. I will say that is the first state where I went into the Thai restaurant in downtown Orono, and there was somebody with a handgun visible. Coming from California, that was a very, very big shock to me that even happens, because you can't do that here. So anyways, there you have it. I mean, I think that you guys will find ways to negotiate that, hopefully. And I do think that, like, depending on what kind of teacher you are, like in my classroom with my specific brand of kids I had that were mostly 9th through 12th graders that were pretty rough, they'd look at most of this repertoire and be like, I'm not singing this Shakira song. I'm not doing that song. And it'd be easy for me to sub it in and say, okay, let's do this other song. I think that's the goal, though. Any other questions?
Is there a lot of, does the book mirror a lot of the stuff that's on the website? So like, would I be able to see something in the book and then be like, oh, I know exactly where I can go listen to that song, or quickly pull up things? I just tend to use my device a lot, accessing this stuff, and I could just see myself probably holding my iPad with the Little Kids Rock website up more and being like, oh yeah, let me just flip to that song really quick.
Well, let me put it this way. I think almost all the songs we're using in the book are also on the website, but they'll be different. Like the graphics, everything we did for Hal Leonard is copyrighted for the Hal Leonard site. So none of it is the same, but in the same token, the songs are similar. So the chart in your teacher's manual will look different than the one on our website, but you could use them in conjunction with each other. I will say this though, a lot of these books are built upon the things we did at the 101. So a lot of the activities will be familiar. The 2-note solo is in there. It just gets more in depth with all those things. So yeah, I think you can still use them in conjunction, but they aren't made to be like an easy, one or the other. But I do think that you're going to find, I mean, I haven't seen it yet. They're still building the site, but the site that's going to go along with the book specifically, I think is going to be a little bit more of a, jam zone on steroids for this particular material. In other words, you turn to page 8 and it's talking about a 6-note solo using the key of D minor. There's literally going to be a button that you click on your iPad if you're on the site, and it will play like a 5-minute loop that you can work on with your students. So that's the goal, is to make it so that there's things like that. Even the songs at the end of each chapter, we're making audio tracks for those because we're not allowed to use the actual song. And oftentimes we transpose it anyways. But like it will have the verse, and you click on it, you can listen to the verse. It has the chorus, you click on it, you listen to the chorus, and it'll loop. And then there will be an entire song, so you can hear the entire form. And practice it with your students or whatever. I'm starting to realize that I showed up in a brewery shirt and I'm drinking from a glass that says Guinness. So it is water, and I'm really not an alcoholic, I swear. But I only own 3 glasses, and they're because my friend got me some at the Guinness factory. I don't have much stuff is what I'm trying to say. So any other questions about the books?
Now you mentioned there's a riff of the week or lick of the week or riffs included in the books.
Oh yeah, it won't be like of the week or whatever. But yeah, there are actual, so let me take out the guitar book. It's probably the easiest to see it on. You'll see already on page, I'm in section 2, which is clearly the second section. I don't know why I had to say that. I didn't. You can see there's already tablature. So here's the 24, 6 to 25 or 6 to 4 riff. I'm having to look at this in the tiny little window backwards. There's actually, I don't do much of this in the book, but there's a little bit of exercises, finger exercises. Because, you know, my opinion is most exercises are best if they're actually in the context of practicing a song. But there's a couple ideas on how to practice scales. So you do see there's a lot more riffs in the books themselves and in the songs themselves.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most helpful thing, you know, because we haven't really been able to do that before because of copyright for melodies. But we all know that simple melodies are the best way to build up dexterity on instruments.
Right.
So.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Are we good?
Good.
Cool.
All good.
So I'm going to move on to just talking about a couple other things that we've been doing recently. We had a big retreat back in December where we met and started thinking about future resources. As most of you guys, familiar faces, I've known have been around the block for a couple of years with us. And you might be thinking, well, I've done my 101 and my 102. My kids are getting pretty good at this, or they're not, either way. When are there going to be new materials? Or maybe that you're someone that's been doing this on your own for a bunch of years, not talking about you, Diane, that already has lots of resources. So we're really trying to push to add more intermediate resources right now and advanced resources. So the biggest change I think that's coming up is we're adding a 201. I know the numbering gets a little weird. We decided that we did the 100 series of our 101 and 102 is beginning. 200 will be intermediate, and eventually we'll add a 300 series, which is more advanced courses. So the 201 class should be ready, and I mean, Jason and I haven't really discussed this yet, but it will definitely take place in Maine, probably in the fall. We're gonna beta test it at some local spots that's easy to, like I'm gonna do it in LA, obviously, because I'm here and then I don't have to travel. And we'll probably have other people in some of our major markets where we have trainers actually do it there. But the goal of that one is actually to do a couple different things. So for instance, there'll be a 2-hour segment of that, which is literally just one class, a day in the life of a teacher, you know. So a 60-minute class expanded a bit for questions and answers and stuff like that. Talking about how you would structure your class from a warm-up, et cetera, et cetera. Another aspect of it is we're going to dive very deep into one song. So we'll pick one song and really get into it to talk about it, the nuts and bolts from how to get past just strumming the chords, or not just strumming, since you don't really strum a piano or a drum set, I suppose, but just playing the chords and getting to the next level. So that's it's basically the PowerPoint, the rough draft of the PowerPoint is done. Now we're kind of adding play alongs, picking songs to use with it, and gonna release those. Also at that thing, we revamped parts of the 101 and the 102 to make them a little bit newer and excitinger, I guess. More or less when we do that, what we're usually trying to do is look for areas where people have made comments that, you know, maybe something is dated from the song material. Maybe they could use a couple new, maybe there's a section that needed to be smoothed out here and there. So that's going to be coming out as well. We're going to probably be pilot testing those. And then as of next year, those will be different. To be honest, that probably won't affect most people on this call unless you wanted to. In other words, when we do a 101 and a 102 next, I think we're not doing one in Maine until the fall or summer.
Well,
And
we're looking at, right now, we're looking at doing a 101 either in June or August for the next cohort that's coming in, and then a 102 sometime in the fall. But I'm thinking perhaps that Columbus Day weekend that a lot of people have workshop time. A lot of schools have that weekend, that Thursday, sometimes Thursday and Friday or the Friday before, Indigenous Peoples Day. Sorry, not Columbus Day anymore in Maine. Indigenous Peoples Day. That might be a good time to run a 200, Scott, if we get around to that.
okay.
But we can come up with, I mean, that's not in stone. We can come up with that, but that's really exciting that we have that opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm listening. I'm just, my blinds are rattling, so I'm adjusting.
You have blinds? You have like 3 glasses. Why do you have blinds?
It came with the place. It came with the place.
Okay.
Don't make
Fair
me
enough.
turn this meeting into a tour of my apartment. It's very weird for me. This is the first time I've done a webinar not in the Little Kids Rock office. So, I'm like, oh, my bike's in the background. I feel like I should turn it some more so you can see my my guitar amps and my guitars and stuff. That's the music corner, basically. So.
Wow, you really do live a minimalist life.
Oh, no, I do. Like, when I moved in, I had to buy furniture because I didn't have anything, but I only owned what fit in my car. And it's just a regular sized car. So it was a couple suitcases. That was about it. When you don't live anywhere for 4 years, you just learn that you don't need anything. So, but,
There you
and
go.
I do have my one picture of John Coltrane. He's over there.
Nice.
Everyone's got to have at least one poster, right?
Absolutely.
So anyways, that's a little bit of up to date with that, but also there's going to be some PD sessions. And I do know that we've talked about a little bit of last year, especially at the summit, for those of you guys that are there, we've talked about this training of more Maine teachers to become trainers for your local areas. And I know that we've been, Jason, myself, and some people on our end have been discussing how we're going to make that happen. But included with that is a series of PDs we're making, which will be shorter. So we have our full day workshops, and then we're going to have these 90-minute PDs, of which we're trying to have about 20 of them prepped and ready to go. So everything easy, like, beginning guitar, intermediate soloing, intermediate keyboards, a lot of the stuff that were options for you guys to choose from when you're deciding on these. And we're going to try to do some of those together. But also things like technology, the P-Bone instruments, some of the stuff that you've seen if you've been to the summit. About how many of you have been? I'm guessing about 5 of the people on this call have been to the summit. It seems like, because a lot of you guys are familiar from there. So.
Yeah. So Scott, just to clarify, the PD that you just were referring to, is the plan for those to be canned, recorded, available virtually?
Yeah, well, I think
in theory.
Ideally, what those are going to be is in the same way we do when we go to like an MEA or something like that. So they're meant to be presented, but
Okay.
the PowerPoints will be online, and we'll show people doing them as well. The
Okay.
hardest thing always with kind of having canned recorded presentations is you don't get the interactive aspects.
Sure.
And we love getting the band together. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, but the idea would be that, for instance, maybe, and I can't speak for Maine. I know, like, for instance, in Los Angeles, they're going to try to have PDs once a month on a Tuesday from 4 to 6 in person. And, they would say, okay, this is going to be a guitar PD. This one's going to be a keyboard PD. This is going to be a full band PD. And then people come out to the ones that they want to do. It's also going to be available for districts to, like, use as a fee for service. Like, a lot of these districts are reaching out to us and saying, can you fly somebody out and teach, 4 days of something? So
I think, so this is thinking super long-term, everybody, but the vision that we have here at the Department of Ed for the Maine Kids Rock program is to eventually have this grow into maybe even its own multi-day workshop. It's like a multi-day conference, or maybe just a conference series. And we're challenged with geography, and we're challenged with individualized schedules, and other issues that come up. But I think eventually we'd just like to see so many of you involved in this initiative, that, through our teacher leader program that we're going to really hit the ground running with in the fall, that eventually we'll get to a point where we'll have enough material, we'll have enough participants, and we'll have enough presenters that we can do sort of like what Scott is alluding to. I mean, it's just, like we said, it's hard because we all can't be geographically in the same place every month or whatever. And having a Maine coordinator for Little Kids Rock would be fantastic, but it's not very practical for us in terms of our geographic isolation. So
you just got to shrink the state, guys. Just got to find a way to do that. So I think that that kind of catches you up to date with on some of that stuff. But I would also say like we've been doing a lot of PDs lately, and specifically, I know one thing that a lot of people mentioned was the concept of technology. Something I know that we shared before, and I think I want to test this out just because I think I figured out how to screen share. It looks like there's a button that says share, and that might work. 50-50. But I wanted to share with you a video that Spencer made specifically, because I know this is one of the most common questions we get. And since we made this video, it's been one of the most thankful things that we have. That we see every workshop we do, people are like, oh, that was the best part. It's basically about how to use the Google Chrome extension.
Yeah.
Does anyone familiar with that offhand right now?
Yeah, we did a little bit of that in the fall when Spencer came out. He showed us that.
Oh,
Pretty
okay.
cool. Yeah, it was very awesome. But I don't know if not everybody here was at that workshop, and not everybody may have seen it. If you click share on your Zoom window, Scott, you should be able to show us anything you want.
Yeah, let me see how this works here. You guys probably don't need to see my pre-approval list. Okay, what am I sharing? Oh, there's all these options. How do I know which one it is? Let's just do the desktop. Now I've got to go security and privacy. Okay, hold on a minute. Sorry guys, this might take a second.
It's all right.
Being between computers is making this all very confusing for me as well.
Jason, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
This is for Jason.
Go ahead, Diane.
And if you could give a ballpark figure, off the top of your head, how many people in our state are actually doing this gig? You know what I mean? Because I don't know. I just wonder about, even if people that you don't know, especially in Little Kids Rock, they're
Right.
Like nobody knew I was doing this for a long time before.
Right.
Okay. So, if you 30% of educators do this, or
Oh, in terms of percentage of educators, I don't have that number. I can just tell you that a hard number is about, I think I have about 35 people on a roster that I know of that actively have some modern band component in their curriculum, whether it's a unit that they teach because they're an elementary school teacher or a course that they offer at the high school. I think we're between the 35 and 40 range right now. Our goal is that for next year we want to get to a nice round 50 is our goal to add for the next cohort. But I don't have a percentage yet. But Diane, that's something I really should come up with, because that's a good that would be a good number for me to have when we're discussing all of this.
Well, and I think another thing to consider is, just speaking, while he's doing his computer, are we starting this with our, K4, or is this being implemented at, teachers taking the plunge at 4 to 8, or is it just in high school? I think some of that data would be kind of helpful in targeting what the needs are.
So, absolutely, I agree with you. So it's great that you mentioned that, Diane, because the chief academic officer for Little Kids Rock is Steve Venz. And I think, Diane, you met Steve out in Colorado last summer. So Steve is going to be coming to Maine during the Jam Fests in the spring. And he's going to be working on interviewing some of you and some of your students as part of a program evaluation that we're doing for the state. So we've decided that through all the years that we've had Maine Kids Rock, we haven't done a fantastic job of really kind of documenting people's experiences and some of the demographic ideas that you're kind of alluding to, and like where are people starting and who's working at what level and what brought them to this. So Steve's going to be doing a series of interviews with people, and he and I are going to be working together on writing up a program evaluation of where Maine Kids Rock started and where it is now and where we'd like it to go, to have like a future vision. So yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, because we are looking to do that in the spring.
And I honestly, I think you need to go to the next step further. If you want to promote this, then it needs to be promoted for young educators that are coming into this. So that means UMaine, USM, all these ones that are having it, because now
Yes.
you're expecting, you want kids or new teachers to implement it, but they haven't had any of the resource or the backing. And now all of a sudden it's a new program we want to promote, and they don't have.
Yes. The university,
Yeah.
yep, I can tell you, the University of Southern Maine and the University of Maine at Orono both have faculty members that incorporate modern band approach and pedagogy in their in some of their methods classes.
Yeah,
So
I
they
think
are
we had
doing that.
a professor from each one of them came to our office for a week to come to the Modern Band Fellowship.
Yep. Yeah, so I know that it's happening. I haven't seen it in person live. I haven't been to speak with them or see what's going on, but I do know that there's a point person at each campus at USM and UMaine where they are incorporating that into their some of their methods courses.
Well,
I don't think we don't have a school yet in Maine that has a dedicated modern band course at the college level, but they are trying to incorporate it as much as they can.
Okay.
I'm going to the All-State Conference, returning there finally after a long break because I wasn't a member of NAFME. Do you guys do anything with clinics at the All-State in-service?
This year we're going to be doing two.
Good.
Hopefully Scott's going to be doing one on ukuleles, or somebody from Little Kids Rock will be doing one on ukes. I think Scott,
Right.
we're trying to make it Scott, but because Scott loves coming to Maine and he needs to get another shirt, or maybe he needs to get some Orono Brewery glasses. I think maybe we need to make that happen this time.
That sounds great. I think it's true. I think that I'm going to come out and Steve's going to come out.
Yep, and we're also, Charlie, we're also going to do a panel discussion, which I'm going to be looking for some of you to volunteer to be part of that. I'm looking for Maine Kids Rock educators that are at different points in their experience. And we're going to do a little panel discussion on what brought you to it. What has it done for your program? What do you see as the future of the program, and what do you see as your participation in that future? And then be able to take some questions from the audience, because I think we need to. I saw that things like that out in Colorado at the summit last summer, and I think it's important that we continue to, like you said, Diane, to market this to a variety of different audiences. So I want to invite people to come to that, to ask us questions about it, so that we can tailor the program to meet their needs better. Try to entice some people from different levels. So those are the two sessions, Charlie, that we're going to do that are Maine Kids Rock related.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So, all right, good times. Yeah, I think what I had to do was leave the meeting for a minute to open my sharing settings. So now I think that I can share this video, and you guys can also get all my credit card information and social security number.
Awesome. Here's to hoping.
But let's see if we can watch this video. It's about a minute long, and it's kind of fun. And some of you might have seen it, but hey, why not? Refresher. Yay. This also, and by the way, I do appreciate you guys kind of sitting through this with me while it gives us an opportunity to see just what we can do for future ones and how interactive, and if there's a big lag time on sound, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to switch to sharing right now. And boom. And I wonder if I go full screen, if it goes full screen. That's full screen now, right?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, let's see. Now let's see how it sounds.
Now that you're all excited to start playing tunes with your kids, you're probably going to be searching for more resources. Let's take a look at a popular YouTube page, the one that our very own Spencer Hale runs. Their channel is appropriately named Spencer Hale. So you pick a song. Dancing with a Stranger by Sam Smith and Normani. Let's play. Look at that, they've already changed the key to the song so we can play with open chords. That was nice of them. Oh, but wait, it's really fast. My kids are just beginners. Pause that video. We're done here. Too hard. Goodbye. Just kidding. Let's open up another window and search for Transpose Google extension. Let's click that link. Click the Add to Chrome button on the right-hand side of the screen. Then add extension in the pop-up. Now, back to Sam Smith and Normani. The first time you use the extension, you'll have to click the next button a few times to set it up. Now let's slow this down a bit. There. Now my kids can handle it as they get better at their instruments. But wait, we have a student who loves to sing this song, but it's too low for their voice. So we grab some capos to bring it up. But now we can't play along with the video. That's really too bad. Lol, of course I'm just kidding. What fret do we put the capo on? The second? Let's bring the song up 2 half steps so we can continue our thirsty play along. Look at that. It's like a digital capo. You can use this to change the key of any song. So if it's in F sharp or something, you can just bring it up to G. Easy. Nice. Last thing, your kids have nailed the verse, but they're still struggling with the chorus. So that means I, the teacher, have to keep going back, clicking the little progress button and dragging it back to the exact spot the chorus starts, then run around the room, help the kids, then run back in time to get it back for the beginning of the chorus. Oh, that is impossible. Psych, just kidding. You have this sweet loop function. Just mark the time where the chorus starts and ends, and you can loop it now. Now, you're free to just move around the classroom helping kids. Wow, this is such a cool tool. How much does it cost? It's free? Wish I knew about this when I was teaching.
So if you haven't seen that before, hopefully that is something that you can check out. And I found that a lot of teachers are really using that a lot now that they have it. And the reason I really want to bring up this at all is because we've been doing a lot of, sorry, I'm opening up a different window that I will share. If you go to the website, I'll walk you through this. Give me 1 second.
While we're giving Scott a second, how many of you out there, just show of hands, are using that plugin? Awesome. Cool. Very cool. I think it has the potential to be transformative in a number of ways for your kids. Yeah.
So I'm going to share again. So I know that many of you guys use the Jam Zone a lot, and I don't want to spend an hour going over ways to use it. But what I do think is important is if you're on the Jam Zone itself and you go down a bit, and you know how to use a lot of this stuff, but the Teacher Zone is, I think, where there's the most underutilized. You guys are seeing my screen right now, right?
Yep.
Jam Zone. Yep. So I went to the Teacher Zone, and then on it, I'll be 100% honest with you. One of the things we're going to change is when the person that designed this, you have to click so many times to get where I want. Then you're on the Teacher Zone. Just go to teaching resources. Because let's face it, lesson plans and song charts, guess what? They're also teaching resources. It should all be, that page doesn't need to exist. But then on it, we do have the workshop PowerPoints and the teacher's manual. So why is only the 101 showing up right now? The 102 should be there as well. Oh, no, that's right. You click on the workshop PowerPoints button. I know what I'm doing. I do this all the time. And you can download the 101, the 102, the guy riding a motorcycle outside my house. Oh, they're leaving. Sorry, I live about 30 feet from the beach, and there's always loud people doing stuff like that. For instance, the house across from me, right over there, on the right of me, the guy just got a new Ferrari in his driveway. And so he likes to rev it up for 20 minutes, and it's super loud, and exhaust fills my place. It's great. It's not a new Ferrari. It's like a 1980 Ferrari. I don't belong in this neighborhood, is what I'm trying to say. I live in this tiny one-bedroom apartment. Everyone else has these mansions. So while I'm on this, you could see there's all these different PowerPoints. That PowerPoint specifically comes from the technology, teaching tech in music ed. And I just realized it's not up here yet. It will be. So if you look at the other professional developments, I'm going to put it right there next to this integrating hip hop and modern band one. So you'll have access to it. Because what you can do through a lot of these is not only will you have that tech, it talks a lot about walking you through. And I'm going to switch what I'm sharing with you. Not my texts. You guys don't get my texts. Let's see. Stop share. I have to share something else again. So that technology one, for instance, is part of one where I was trying to demonstrate a lot of different tools teachers can use. So a lot of it is walking through the Jam Zone and looking through Jam Zone related stuff. But there are other things in it. for instance, if you don't know, how many of you guys teach ukulele?
I do.
Do any of you guys use Dr. Jill Reese's ukulele play-alongs? All right. How about Chris Gilbert's ukulele play-alongs? So these are two teachers that, well, Dr. Jill is a doctor. She's at somewhere in New York, Fredonia, I think. But, you know, it's play-alongs and there's hundreds of songs. So I know somebody mentioned this song. So let's check it out just for a minute.
I was working in the lab late one night when my eyes beheld an eerie sight. For my monster from his slab began to rise, and suddenly, to my surprise,
So you can see this one's actually a full modern band play along. Chris has been developing things all by herself using our graphics and has made a huge library of them. So it's a good example of, once again, technology tools. In this case, you don't have to make the tech, you just have to know exists and go on YouTube and find the right thing, which I think is really helpful. I'm not gonna ask how many of you guys have made your own play along yet. It's tedious. I've made a lot of them. It's not as easy, but it also has things like how to use your iPads as instruments, which is really great because if you do use them, you can put together a full iPad ensemble if you want to, or if you have a student particularly that is struggling on traditional instruments, but you have an iPad cart, you can literally go using GarageBand, have them play along with everybody else. And you can add in, I've seen a lot of ensembles now when I go to different conferences and when I go to jam fests, where they'll have like a huge band, but then they'll have maybe 3 or 4 people playing on iPads that are hooked up to amps just to make sounds and to, you know, they can play along on chords or whatever.
Some of our schools in Maine, Scott, have an option for one-to-one iPads if their district has bought onto that. Is there anyone in here that has iPads as a resource versus laptops?
I have
Okay,
some.
James says, okay. You have some, Alicia? Okay.
I'm thinking this would be a great way to get the special learner involved.
Yep, absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah, without a doubt. In fact, I guarantee that most all of you, if you ask your special services coordinator or any of your special educators, I bet they have some iPads that they use for adaptive technology that you could probably incorporate into your music classrooms with those students. So it's worth asking for. Sometimes you don't know what they have for adaptive technology until you ask.
I've been using it a lot lately with the little kids, with the younger kids, and
That's great.
they're having a great time with it.
Good deal.
Awesome. Yeah, and just to get back there again, some resources that you may or may not know exist that I think are pretty important on the Jam Zone. Let me open this back up again. So as you can see, that's one of them. But like, for instance, this integrating hip hop session, if you scroll up a little bit, you'll notice there's this 3 different hip hop presentations that Kenrick specifically made. And then there's the one that I took his sessions and I made it for what I present at conferences. And I actually think this is a really good way of taking all the neat things he does and kind of systematize them in a way that goes from A to Z in just an hour session. But basically what happened was I had to present at a conference and Kenrick couldn't be there, so it was just me. And I said, well, what do I personally feel comfortable doing? And I think that the feedback I got that was really crucial is that it's really easy for Kenrick as a Black rapper, a guy who's been doing rap his whole life, to present and make us all feel very safe and secure and fun doing hip hop. And then maybe you have the experience of going back to your classroom and as not that person struggling with it or finding that there's some barriers for your success. That's definitely been my case. So I made this PowerPoint based on the stuff that I felt comfortable with in a way that felt to me like it would work really well with my students. And I talk a lot in there. For instance, there's a lot of slides mentioning other resources you can find to get into the hip hop culture and, through like Netflix has a ton of great documentaries that are definitely worth watching. And it's easier than reading a book, especially since a lot of the literature about it is very dense, but also recommend some of those as well. So I think that, I talk about things like that and how it's really important if you're doing hip hop and you're not a hip hop artist to recognize that, and to recognize that you're not going to teach hip hop, you're going to facilitate hip hop. So I don't know how relevant that is for any of you guys, because I don't know how many of you guys, like, I'll be honest, I'm not in Maine. I have a feeling that Maine hip hop isn't as big as it is, say, in Los Angeles or New York City. But for those of you guys that are looking to get into it, it's something to think about. But more or less, you can see these other sessions that I have done here that I do around the country that are easy, like entry points. It's like the ukulele one. So those are a bunch of those PowerPoints. But the other thing I think is really valuable on this page, on the Teacher Zone, is, wait for it. Ah, there it is. Sorry, your pictures are blocking it. Is this. The Modern Band Summit presentations. So I know a bunch of you guys were there, but if you weren't, you can see there are literally 4 years worth of presentations there. I have heard that the links are broken on 2016 and 2017 right now. We're trying to fix them. But basically, oops, that's not the right one. Let's go to the most recent. The most recent one, if you're looking for some just kind of, trying to get some ideas, because I know one of the most interesting and beautiful things about the way that Modern Band works with you guys is that everybody's doing it really differently. You have different instrumentation, you have different ages, you have different class sizes. I remember seeing, who was it? Jim, last name with a Z, that I can't pronounce.
Jim Zabrick.
Yeah, Zabrick. Okay, I saw his class, and he had like, I don't know, he had like 12 kids in the class, and they were in like 8 different grades. And so he'd have like a 3rd grader on drums, and like an 11th grader on keyboard, and 7th grader on trumpet, because he had a school population of like 200, and it was a K through 12 school. So I know for a lot of you guys, you're trying to find interesting new ways to do it. So a lot of these for this last year are organized by section. So maybe you're looking for some next steps on guitar. These Gary Heimbauer presentations are fantastic for learning how to, first of all, become a better guitar soloist, and also learning how to strum better. Tony's section on playing intermediate rhythm guitar is great too. And then Moran is like kind of like a beginning, from the very beginning, how to start breaking out of your shell a little bit. So, there's just a whole bunch of neat things there that you can get to. Like if you're really looking to bring some Cuban sounds into your classroom, I don't know what the Cuban population of Maine is, but I imagine it's very high. Imagine pretty much 90% of Maine is Cubans at this point, right? So
hold on though, Scott. You joke. However, I will say that in many of our urban dense areas, and we have a few, the population diversity is quite is changing a lot.
Oh, I just didn't expect it to be Cuban. I expected it to be
yeah.
It's not Cuban.
Yeah, okay, so fair enough. It's probably not Cuban yet, but who knows?
Well, like it shocks me. Like, so for instance, as somebody who spent a lot of time in the Caribbean studying music and stuff like that, but living in Los Angeles my whole life, we have very, very few Puerto Ricans here. But then I go to New York, and it's crazy amount of Puerto Ricans there. So we get a lot of people from Central America in my classrooms when I taught. So anyways, so there's a lot of things that you can look at here. I know for many of you guys, one of your favorites would be the Riff a Day. That's the presentation that I've done for years, and it gets expanded. And this most recent year, what we did was we basically took a bunch of songs that were literally 2 to 4 bars of a song, something that we could vamp. And if you don't know the term vamp, it just means repeat as much as you want to. It's I believe comes from musicals, when you have to vamp to make up time for whatever the dialogue is going on stage. So basically, it has guitar, bass, drums, and keyboards all at the same time on one score, and it just moves across through those 2 to 4 bars. So for instance, one of them that's probably really popular right now is the vamp from Bad Guy by Billie Eilish. That's a very popular one. So anyways, that's just a little bit of, some of the resources that you can get out there without having to deal with me directly. Yes.
Hey, Jen.
Oh, that's Jen's just waving. Hi, Jen. And eating. Did you bring enough for the whole class? No. Okay. So anyways, that's a good deal of a bunch of different kinds of stuff that we have going on here. And I just wanted to bring that to your attention in case you're looking for more resources and you don't have them. But what I will say is that I plan for the next every single other session, of which I'll do maybe one or two of them, but different members of the team will do different ones depending on what the topic is. They will be organized PowerPoints that can go through back and forth. I imagine most sessions will be roughly about 60 to 90 minutes worth of organized material that we can play along with each other on, and then Q&A. That make sense?
I got a question.
Yes, please.
What do you do for like a substitute lesson? I'm out right now with pneumonia, so how do I provide a sub lesson for a non-musical sub?
I would definitely recommend just show Spinal Tap over and over again. That's what I did.
No, that's wrong.
Oh, that was the wrong answer.
Yeah, and with that, Scott Burstein is not allowed to do any PD sessions for Maine anymore. Sorry, Scott.
gotta go, guys. No, I will say this. There's a lot of, what I find a lot of subs do, it depends if you're willing to let the substitute have the kids have instruments out or not. And if they are, there's a lot of the videos on the website that you could literally just play through with the kids. So for instance, maybe you have a class set of ukuleles. I think the lessons with both Paula Fuga's lessons and Mary Claxton's lessons, you can literally have the sub play them again, go through them, and there's enough material there for hours. So that's like a really good example of something they can do. I would probably balance play together versus play alone time. And you might want to mix it up, do some body drumming stuff, because I know that Gary has a whole sequence of body drumming videos. That would be the easiest thing, I think.
Okay.
The other would be to just not get pneumonia. Just don't do that.
Yeah.
Because when you get a sub, you're usually going to get somebody in my district who knows nothing about music.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's pretty much everybody's district. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest problem I have with sub is I use so much technology that they don't want to sub for me.
Yeah, I always look, I'll be honest. So the first thing was, luckily it's Los Angeles, so every single substitute teacher in Los Angeles is either an actor or a musician. And so my sub actually that I found very early on was a really good musician and is now actually a little kids rock teacher in Los Angeles. But he subbed for me for about 7 or 8 years while he was in the industry before deciding to teach full time. But even with him, even though he played music, I just learned that I had to leave something very simple because he didn't understand my class or my setup. So a lot of it was book work back then because I didn't have, a smart board or anything like that. But nowadays, I would definitely, if you have the ability to just have him play something off the internet, I would literally have a link to sites and the videos queued up that he could use. That'd be my guess. Does anybody else have any other suggestions here?
If you have to show a video, because you don't want to take stuff out, the stomp videos are awesome. I had one sub who showed that to some of my little kids and then let them kind of try out some of the things they saw, and that they had a lot of fun with that. And I think if your kids are used to having a good procedure with their instruments, you could. I've had them do that too. So.
Sorry, someone's probably drowning.
I was gonna say, is there a fire, Scott, or what?
No, this
Did the Ferrari catch fire?
It happens about twice a week. It's probably a surfer that was caught in the tide. So.
That's Alicia. Those are good suggestions, though. I've used those in my classroom too.
Alicia, were you at the summit last year?
Yeah.
Did you go to any of Ollie's sessions?
Yeah, I loved his session. That was so much fun. Oh my gosh.
But for those of you guys that weren't at the summit or didn't go to Ollie's sessions, Ollie Tumner he's in Stomp. He's in Stomp in the UK, and so he did a bunch of Stomp like sessions. And I think probably not this year, but next year he's going to come back this year, I think. But I think the year after that, we're going to actually do a full day pre-conference for people that are interested, where people will have like 5 hours of Stomp lessons with him and create a show and then perform the show the first night. Like a 10-minute show, not like, everyone sit down for 2 hours, but like, so something like that.
And some of you, speaking of Ollie, some of you mentioned to me after the summit how excited you were about his stuff. And so it's not going to happen for this year, but I'm hoping for MMEA Spring Conference 2021, we might be able to get Ollie here to do a session, which would be pretty cool, or a series of sessions.
Yeah, he'd be great to do a keynote or something like that if you need to.
Yep. I'm trying to work some of that angle right now. So.
Yeah, I mean, England and Maine are much closer than Colorado and Maine. So when him and I were talking about it, and he was basically like, "Yeah, I'd love to come out, but I gotta figure out how to make it worth my while." So. What other questions? I do want to let this be some kind of open questions time, and that time can be specific to your classroom. It can be specific to an instrument, like if you had something that you wanted, something you were dying to figure out that you didn't know. And then I would like, after a little bit, to talk more about kind of the laying out the other sessions that were picked and how we will work with those. And I'm going to open these blinds now. It's getting even windier. Okay, hopefully that will stop clicking. Okay, so does anybody have anything specific?
I have something.
Sure.
Jim from I have a bass player who is just starting out, and he thinks that he has to pull the string with the full force of his entire hand to get it to sound, and it just makes a horrible thump. And I don't know what I can do to get him to chill out, just to relax with it. Have you ever experienced that before, or anybody else?
Yeah, sorry, I'm getting my bass out.
Okay.
Don't look in my closet, it's messy.
Okay.
Everything I own's in there. Hold on.
You have a whole apartment, Scott, that you can spread that stuff out in,
I have one room, basically. My bedroom has a bed in it. So typically, it depends how they're playing, but if you have a student that's really digging in and under,
yeah,
I think the best thing to think about it with the bass is you can really push through.
Right.
Just that little, just pushing through the string.
Yeah, the message just doesn't get to him. So I'll it's a good demonstration.
I mean, look, I think the other option is particularly give him a pick.
Yeah, I might have to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. It's funny because I spent years when I was playing the bass because I was the bass player in the marching band because we didn't have a tubist, and then in the jazz band. And when I'm used to playing bass very lightly.
Yeah.
And I think I'm just like basically almost hitting the strings, not plucking.
Right.
When we say you're plucking the strings, people always think you're like,
yeah,
which is great when you start,
You're doing funk.
But when I switch to upright, then you really do have to pull through loudly.
Okay.
And I think it's an important thing to point out to them. If it's not getting through, another thing you can do is, I mean, I'm hesitant to do it because it might end up backfiring, which is crank the amp up real loud.
Yeah.
And ask him to play softly.
Well, he's already playing pretty loudly with it. Yeah. So yeah, we'll work on that.
Yeah, I might just want to try using a pick for sure, though.
Okay.
What else you guys got?
Oh, I tell my bass players to walk their fingers across the strings, not pluck them, but actually just walk their fingers.
Right.
I tell them to just touch the top of the string. I haven't had any problems with kids pulling too hard if they're just touching.
You can also have them, I mean, like it's a good skill to learn how to just fret it, not use the right hand at all.
Oh, yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Yeah.
but it's good because it really builds up strength too, right?
Yeah.
Any other particular questions, things going on in your classrooms?
I have a couple kids who have really taken to the keyboard this year, which has been awesome. And they're telling me that they want to be able to practice at home. And of course, they don't have pianos in their homes. Is there any technology that might be available to them? I know they don't have iPads either, so I haven't explored any apps there.
I mean, first of all, I know, like, I'm just gonna keep pulling things out of my closet. So I have one of this, and this is, it wasn't that expensive, but it's big. There's smaller versions of this that you can get for like $70 that only have like 10 keys. And you can plug them into, there's ones that you can even plug into phones.
Oh, cool.
So you can directly plug it into your phone and then have your headphones in it so that you can actually just, you know, if they're playing, they'll be able to hear it that way. Now, you know, phones, there's the phones that have like the little keyboards on it. I just find it's not like effective because it's not quite the same sort of tactile thing, personally. Which is why I like having something like this that, you know, this one has a USB cable. So I can plug this into my computer and just, you know, with a variety of apps, make noise on it, like GarageBand. I use it for Finale primarily, though. That's the only reason I even have this in here. Anybody else have any other ideas, suggestions?
I would like to have something to send home with my students too. So I'm thinking about small keyboards or something just to take home, because you really need to just fool around and play. I have a lot of kids coming in at recess to play. I have to kind of divvy up the space. I have a few different couple little practice rooms, so I try to encourage them to come in to do that if they want. So that's been kind of good.
Right.
We used to have the flat keyboard, the portable one, and they're more high tech now, so you can actually push it down in chords. Back in the day when I was like elementary teaching, it was just one note at a time. But they make them so you can actually play it and it's roll out on the table kind of situation. And then
those things that look cool.
I'm looking for, I have a resource somewhere, a lead on where you can get those. I'm looking it up right now.
And then the MIDI keyboards, the little MIDI,
right. Yeah,
they can plug into a computer, or they could just, if they just want to practice how to play the chords, if it's not even sound, they don't necessarily have to have sound to practice their shapes.
True.
It's more fun with sound.
Much more fun.
Yeah, I'm hoping to allocate some of my budget money for next year to be able to buy some things, but more just thinking of like, what can I do to get through this year maybe? So.
I did an instrument drive through the local paper, and I was lucky enough to snag 6 keyboards from the community. You might want to try that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's nice. I want to have a lending library, more stuff that I can send home. So that's what I'm working on now, like band instruments, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know about the tax implications of this, but it might be of benefit to people. If they can donate instruments to the school, they might be able to do it as a tax write-off. I'm not sure. I'm not an accountant, but I'm just thinking that might work as a charitable donation or something.
A local school in VZ, just outside of Orono, they contacted a local news station. They came in and they did almost a promotional like outreach to they talked about the program, they interviewed the teacher, they interviewed a student, and then they did a TV request for any donations to the school. So a local TV or newspaper may be interested.
That's great. We did something like that a few years ago. For the past, I don't know, several years, I've tried to buy instruments for my regular band. So I have a lot of, because none of my students can afford to rent instruments. And we have quite a few band instruments. So trying to figure out I have enough instruments for kids to play in school, but I can't really send a lot of them home because sometimes I've sent them over the weekend, you know, so they can bring them home on Monday so that we can use them during the day. But I really want to get more, so I don't feel like if they don't bring them, nobody else can play all week, you know?
Sure. It's the challenge I always had in the classroom with my set of ukuleles is that I only had enough for a class, and I had like 4 spares in case they got busted or something. So I could never let them go home because I was afraid they weren't ever going to come back.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's all good. I know that I had a ton of guitars, but definitely there was that kid that would borrow the guitar and then be sick, or the kid that would borrow the guitar and then take 3 weeks off of school.
At least they had a guitar.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will just chime in. I'm a Craigslist. I don't know if it's out in California, but I'm a Craigslist fan. And
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, we're all teachers and we spend a lot of dough of our own, and I'll look for something. I know what I'm looking for. And you can pick up, $40 to $50 to $75 instruments, and mostly electric guitars, basses. And if I see it, I buy it. And there's probably 6 or 7 of them right in my classroom right now that
Cool.
I just bought them, and because now I'm guaranteed my kids have something to play.
Yeah, that's great.
As far as little practice stuff for ukulele and guitar, at the summit this past summer, the guy showed me it's just like a practice guitar neck, basically, and it was like $10, and it's good because if I don't have a ton of instruments right now because I'm starting off, so those are the extras, and I've got like 5 of those, so one partner does that, one does the other, and those all definitely I lend out, and so the kids can just practice chords, and for ukulele or guitar, it's great.
That's great. Cool.
I wanted to ask my own question of everybody here, since I have you all, and that is primarily if you could share with me, and this is always interesting so I know what to report back to my team, one song you're working on right now.
Yellow.
By Coldplay?
Yeah. Yeah, Chasing Cars.
Just Give Me a Reason, Pink.
Cool.
Believer, Imagine Dragons.
Riptide.
Tattooed Heart off the website for guitars.
Hesitate by the Jonas Brothers.
Nice.
Black Magic Woman.
Nice.
Cool.
My kids are country kids, so they like God's Country. That's what we're doing right now.
Nice.
Yeah, I was gonna say similar. I got a lot of country fans, so they're doing Country Roads.
Cool. We were doing that Wiz Khalifa See You Again today. Our kids are starting to, we're going to, hopefully the 5th graders are going to start breaking up into small groups and picking songs they want to work on. So we've been mostly just kind of going through different songs and patterns so that they can start choosing their own. But we've been singing a lot of them to kind of go through the ones that they want to do. And so we did that. And we're doing some old throwbacks like Eye of the Tiger. We did that today.
That's fun.
And they loved it. They totally love that song. It's so funny.
I just shared. I was just going to share that my high school group just picked we do a full set, so they have 13 songs that we're working on. But to go with what you're saying, Alicia, easy stuff is fun stuff, and I try to remind they want my high school kids are pretty advanced, and they want the hardest pieces that I can throw at them, but I remind them that it should be fun. And so we do songs from 1950. We do every single decade plus every genre in between.
Nice.
So that the thing about it is they were complaining about one certain song because it only had 3 chords. And I say, shut up, 3 chords are fun. But it represents whatever, the 90s. So I think it's the throwback songs. It's okay. I think
great.
that's okay. And I think it's important for those kids to see the span of music. If you're just doing 2020 songs, sometimes they forget that 70s stuff is pretty awesome too.
I like to point out that the workshops that we run, I usually like about 4% of that music. but I found I really enjoy playing music I don't enjoy listening to.
Yeah.
There's just this level of freedom I get from being able to just like,
Have fun, man.
yeah, just have fun with it, make it my own.
True.
So.
My kids have recently discovered Ozzy Osbourne, and they love Crazy Train, which is so much fun to play.
I think that we use the Crazy Train riff in this book somewhere, but yeah, it's fun. I do have a marching band arrangement of that I made somewhere.
It's been nice with my age group, because I'm 3, 4, 5, and so a lot of their parents are roughly my age, and so they're kind of at that age where when I ask them, like, you put on the old compact disc, what do you like to listen to? They're like, oh geez, I don't know, but they know their parents' music a lot, so it's actually like synced up really well, because they're picking the music and then they're picking a lot of tunes that I grew up listening to, and then you ask them, hey, wow, that's amazing, like, you like The Cure? And they're like, oh yeah, my dad loves The Cure. It's like, oh, all right, fantastic.
That's great.
The Cure, I love The Cure. I just saw them back in October, and they're so good. I wish that like more kids were super into them right now, because like they always have like this great easy bass line, a really cool guitar melody, a pretty simple keyboard part. It's like everything. It's really perfect for like, especially like a late beginning, early intermediate group.
I think sometimes when you see with an unfortunate passing, kids get drawn into that particular one. So we just lost, a drummer for Rush, and so my kids want to Rush to him or when you lose Prince, and then all of a sudden Purple Rain is. So it's unfortunate we lose these people, but then it's all of a sudden I got to check that guy out or check that band out.
Yeah.
That's
Unfortunately, when it's Rush, then you have to try to get your kids to play Rush songs.
Well, listen, I tried to explain that to them in class today, and I can override it, but Limelight was on their ticket. I'm like, really? When you think of '80s, that's what you think of as a Canadian band? So,
I mean,
seriously,
Limelight probably one of the easier Rush tunes to do.
I get that, but I don't want.
Everyone wants to do Tom Sawyer. I'm like, have fun with that 7/8.
That was on there too. I know. I said no. Well, no.
At least they didn't say YYZ.
No, they didn't. They didn't. Oh,
Okay,
There's
so
a great video of even Rush trying to play Rush. They try and play it on Guitar Hero, and they struggle mightily. So if Rush can't play Rush,
That's funny. That's very funny.
that's like Spinal Tap. So Lizzo, You Flirt. Oh my God, that ukulele thing where, it's like a kid version. My first graders were playing that yesterday.
Oh, cool.
Everybody in the whole school just absolutely loves that song. So we've been having a lot of fun with that, playing along with that.
Yeah, that was popular. I don't know if you guys knew about we had the All National Modern Band this year, and one of the songs we ended up doing was Lizzo's Juice. And it was our big close.
So good. I watched the video.
Yeah, it was really, really solid. So
great.
A lot of fun. And it's actually, I could actually even show, since we've got another minute or two, and then I was going to ask, we're going to go over next month. Give me 1 second. So just in case you haven't seen the sequence of it, here's a little bit about that. It's the whole experience. So I am opening up and sharing again real fast. Share this.
While Scott's doing that, and I have a second before he plays it, I'll make sure that at one of our next sessions coming up that somebody talks to you more about the Jam Summit, or the summit coming up this summer, and how you can look into that to attend, and some of you can have done a little testimonial anyway with it. So it'd be really cool if we could just talk a little bit about that for some of you that are thinking about going and would like to figure out how to make it happen.
So for those of you guys that maybe don't know that much about it, this year for the first time ever, we had the All National Modern Band Ensemble. We had 16 kids from 10 different states. One of the applicants was from Maine, but unfortunately we kind of had hit our limit of drummers at that point. It was super solid. It was really hard choosing students. I'm hoping next year we'll get at least one kid out from Maine. We're supposed to try and take kids from all the states, but we're not going to have 50 kids, obviously. But you can see this thing here. So we had basically 16 kids from 10 states. And the real big difference, and the thing I learned the most from was like, these other kids, they show up, they already have their repertoire pretty much memorized, played note for note. And the director works with them. You basically have 5 rehearsals, 5 2-hour rehearsals. And, a lot of the other directors after the first day, they're like, wow, I don't know what I'm going to do for the other 4 rehearsals. We already sound great. My kids had barely chosen the songs by that point because they chose the songs. I didn't choose the songs. We guided them. Like, basically, they made a list, they voted, and then from the ones they voted on, we made a set list that made the most sense and was diverse. And then they arranged things, they composed it, they decided what they wanted to play on each song, and it was a really exciting adventure. And you can see the music we played. We started off with Carry On My Wayward Son, which everybody knows. We did a John Mayer tune, which I hadn't heard. It was one of his newer tunes, so it was kind of cool and very R&B-like. We did a Foo Fighters Everlong, which is a big hit for the audience, of course. We did a song by this really cool neo-soul band called Hiatus Coyote, and it was really fun, very challenging, a lot of weird phrasing and stuff, and all these jazzy chords. And then we ended with Lizzo. And then we had one student who had written a song. Well, a lot of them had written songs, and they voted on which song they wanted to do, and they performed it. So the reason I mention this, I know at least one of you is a high school teacher here and should consider having a student or 2 or 3 apply. Because last year, we were able to give out scholarships to every Little Kids Rock student that went. So, oops, and I'm trying to go to the next slide. So here's a video of this is like a rehearsal on the second day, and you can see it real fast. So as you can see there on the right, there was some horn players, but it's actually the girl playing trumpet is a guitar player. She's accepted to be a guitarist. The girl playing saxophone was accepted to, the girl playing flute, she was accepted as, she's a keyboard player, and they played keyboard and guitar in other songs. And then I think that there's another trumpet player who was another one of the keyboard players. But as you can see, there's like 3 bass players playing, there's 2 drummers playing, there's a percussionist, we had 4 vocalists. Like, it was a big deal. And that was a rehearsal, and they were trying to determine what they wanted to do. And of course, the end result, here's just like about a minute, here's the last bits of the song from the drum solo that they decided they wanted to put in here. And there you have it.
Looks like a blast.
Yeah, it was super, super fun. Now I have to figure out how to get back out of this.
So, Scott, you were the director this year for that, correct?
I was, and next year it's going to be Mary.
Awesome.
Mary Claxton. Yeah, they were like, why don't you do it again? I was like, it was a lot. It was fun. I'd love to do it again, but I want to spread the love too. I want it to be constant, I would love it to, Little Kids Rock, as long as we sponsor it, it will be us who's choosing who's the director, but it doesn't always have to be us either. So it was a lot of fun, and it was really interesting because you go to the concert, we opened it, and they kept calling me the director, and I said, well, I don't know, I'm not I wasn't on the stage. I came on the stage to make a speech for 2 minutes, and that was it. But yeah, I didn't direct. Like, the kids, I was like, all right, go, and they did. The only other time I went up was I had to remind a student he forgot to tune his guitar back up because he had to drop tune it. And And then, like watching the audience, when we launched into the Kansas song, watching the audience kind of flip out, but not move at all was very interesting. Like a lot of but then they waited to politely clap until the end of the song. And I was like, oh, these, classical and jazz audiences aren't going to enjoy it. So luckily by the Lizzo song, a couple of our teachers got up and started dancing. And the next thing you know, about 50 people came to the front of the stage and started dancing. So that was something. Next year, my goal is to get more people dancing.
So Scott, where can teachers find the application if they want to, if they have a student that they'd like to submit an application for?
The application, it'll be on NAFME's website. I believe the window opens on February 2nd.
Okay.
So shortly, we'll be sending an email out to everybody. We have a meeting tomorrow talking about the marketing, but we'll make sure that is out there. The only rule is it has to be a student that is currently in 9th through 11th grade. So if you have seniors this year, nope, because it's for next year. It's for
Totally
2020, 2021.
Got it.
But any of you guys that have some strong juniors or sophomores or freshmen, that's great. And if you don't, if you're elementary or middle school, it's just great, I think, to get them prepped for it because it's coming. And this is going to get bigger and bigger every year. Last year, we had about 50 applicants. This year, I expect, and I'm not kidding, I expect 250.
That's awesome.
I bet you half those kids that did the orchestra and the jazz band are going to apply for this group next year as well.
Great.
As we say, that's a good problem to have, right?
I mean, I don't have to look at, that's Mary's problem to have now.
That's true. That's true.
That online application, they videotape them. So what's that?
Yeah, the application's ridiculously easy. Basically what you have to do, I mean, for the other ones, they give you repertoire, you have to choose your pieces, you have to do a sight reading thing. All of it, you have to videotape it. For ours, submit 2 pieces of contrasting styles. And not the whole piece either. So if you're a bass player and you choose a song that's just you showing a groove, you don't have to do 36 bars of the same thing. It's really just shows that you can play in time and that you can play in a variety of styles. So I had some kids, I had a bass player that said, hey, I'm submitting this Jaco Pastorius piece. And then for other people, I'm trying to decide between Dream Theater and I was just looking, it was all this shred bass stuff. And I said, if you submit that, you're not getting into this ensemble. I don't want a bass player that thinks he's the soloist. I want a bass player that can play in a band. It's really meant to be for people that want to be in a band. Now, everybody got a solo. Everybody got a little bit of shine, but that is a really important thing for these students to understand. They're part of an ensemble. And they should show a little stage presence if they can, try not to be too wooden in their thing. They can actually take a video from a live performance though, or something like that as well.
I'll keep an eye out for everybody on that in case you get busy doing other stuff, and I'll send it your way.
So now seems like it's an appropriate time, unless anybody else has any other questions about that, to talk about the list of the other sessions.
Sure.
I have it right here.
I was going to say I have it too, so if you want to share it, Scott. So everybody, what I did is I took all of the results from the poll that you did, and I broke it down into the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vote getters. And Scott, if you have that list there, you can read that, or I can read off mine either way.
Yeah, I think that let's start off with the top one, which is technology in the music classroom. And I think it's important briefly, since we have 16 participants on this one, to discuss what does that mean? What does it mean to have technology for the music classroom? So when you guys are thinking about this, if you voted for that, what do you mean? Because keep in mind, this is why I say it, teaching tools, tools that are technologically driven, such as the Google Chrome extension, slowing down, transposing, how to make playlogs, that's all tools for teaching. Then there's technology as an instrument, right? So for instance, using an iPad to make sounds, understanding synthesizer, DJ. And then there's technology for production. So for instance, how to record your ensemble better, how to use microphones, what software you might use to do recordings and to break up recordings. Spencer's actually making a video. I've had so many teachers say to me, and I finally just broke down and we talked about it last week, saying to me, I have a recording of the graduation from last year and my kids are so good, let me show it to you. And I'm like, well, why don't you put it up in the Facebook group? They're like, well, it's a 2-hour video and they're only performing for 3 minutes of it. I said, well, why don't you cut it down? I said, I have no idea how to do that. So that's like a technology tool thing. And by the way, I could figure it out. I'd Google a bit, but I don't know how to do that either myself. I have Spencer do it. That's why step number 1, ask Spencer to do it. Step number 2 is get it back from Spencer. So I think that, when you think of the technology that you're thinking of when you're going to go to a session on technology, what would you like to see? What's the obstacle you want to conquer?
That's a good question.
Yeah. I'm looking for like the latter of the 3 that you said, like using an iPad or, extra technology to add into the modern band while we're playing a song, to like if the kids want to do a hip hop song, just to give that extra sound to it. And then, other stuff to show the kids, like DJ, simple stuff to do on like a Chromebook maybe.
Sounds good.
There were 13 people that responded that they wanted to have something to do with technology in the modern band classroom. So does anyone else want to have since we have 2-hour windows to work with, we could easily tackle technology in a couple different ways in one big session.
I don't have any technology in my classroom other than what I buy myself. Like I use iPads that I bought myself. So it would have to be technology that I could use to teach.
Lynn, would it be helpful in any way, shape, or form to also cover some things that maybe you don't know are out there, or things that you might want to budget for in the future that could augment your classroom?
It would be good, but my budget usually gets cut. So
okay.
If I want something, I have to buy it myself.
Okay.
Mine wasn't necessarily with iPads and things like that, although it is impactful. I just got a new digital board, and now it is being operated by the iPad, but just live mastering. The digital boards are different than the analog boards, and so that's what I was referring to. If I checked that, I don't even know if that was a different category, but that's what I was.
I think there was only one category, Diane, that had anything to do with technology. So it probably, but another category that was similar was like best practices for modern band setup in your classroom. Some people might have considered that to be a similar type thing, but this was the only technology one, I think. Anybody else want to offer any input on the technology vein?
I think I'd have to side with Diane about, I'm still awaiting my interactive board. I don't even know what I'm getting. They've changed their minds 3 times over the last 4 years, and I still don't have anything. And I think the latest conversation was Apple TV. And I guess, if I don't have an iPad, so I think you can run it with an iPad.
Huh.
My music room is on the stage, and we still haven't figured out the best place because the ceilings are so high you can't really mount it correctly. So it's been a back and forth conversation with all the technology people, and nobody knows what anybody's thinking. And in the meantime, I don't get to use an interactive board.
There you go.
I'm in the same boat. It's an older school. Well, it was renovated in 1979, but I'm on the stage and same issues as you have.
Yeah.
Where are you going to put it? How are you going to mount it, et cetera, et cetera. And then I have a folding door that opens into the cafeteria. You can't mount it on that.
Just for clarification, I'm not talking about a smart board. I'm talking about a mixing board.
Oh,
yeah, and I was just going to throw that out, Diane. Thanks. You beat me to it. But another component that might be interesting to look at would be ways that people can utilize their smart boards or their that interactive technology in active ways in their modern band classroom.
Just to be able to put the videos up there, because when I have my second grade class doing ukuleles, we're sitting on the floor looking at my laptop, and they take turns. They're pretty patient. They're doing great.
It's remarkable.
Going back to technology, does distortion pedals count as technology? Because some of my kids are asking about that, and I would really like to do a little more with that. But I'm a piano player, so I need help with that.
Yeah, I think that's a good one.
So pedal, maybe even pedals in general, Jen?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
I have a couple.
Go for it, Jen.
Okay, I'll just go down the list. Hi. I'll go down my list. Amp settings for different styles of music.
Yeah.
I'm past the point of beginner stuff just from dealing with jazz band for years. But it has bothered me that I can't go beyond just the basics now. So like types of amps for every budget, and like what the step up amps actually give you. Just general settings on the amp, like when you're playing a bass and you're plugged in, like how should I have it adjusted for each style of music. I'd like to teach my kids to be able to know their equipment and not just use it. Soundboard settings beyond plug and play.
Yeah.
Like digital setups too. Like I know how to set up a sound system. I know how to set up my speakers. I know how to plug everything in, and all of that stuff I've got, but now what? Like now how do I take that to the next level so that the kids sound even better? Because I know that having a better understanding of that is going to immediately make them sound better. Sound equipment. This is like very general, but all things involved to make kids sound the best. So mics, amps, recording mics, I have all of them, but do I have like the best that's out there? And really like what you get, like best bang for your buck kind of situation. I usually ask the people that work in the area at the music stores and stuff like that, but it would be nice to know like what has been useful to other people. And then looping machines, like teaching it and doing it.
Oh, yeah, I could use that too.
Great suggestions, Jen. To add to the list. That's awesome.
I'm thinking what I might try to do, especially with the technology session, because I'll talk to Spencer about it since Spencer will clearly be doing the technology session, is maybe doing an agenda, breaking it down into different things that they want to present in different time periods, so that, you know, like I know for instance, for the high school folks that are talking about, you know, like soundboard settings, and that's might be completely just not useful for some of you guys, and vice versa. Some of the stuff might be way too easy for other of you. So technology to me, it's really the hardest thing to present on for that reason. You know, like every session that we do at the summit, we get evaluations back, and like, you know, 50 of them will be like, that was great. 25 of them will be, this is way too hard for me. I can't even figure out how to turn on my computer. And 25 of them will be, are you kidding me? This was so easy. I could do this in my sleep. So I think what I'll try to have Spencer do is maybe make an agenda for that session. And that way you can kind of pick and choose what you want to come to.
Cool.
I think that's great.
Or you could just be there the whole time, but be surfing the internet, pretending to pay attention during the other stuff.
Turn your video link off, everybody.
Yeah. Okay, well, so I think that's good for the technology one. I'm gonna attempt, like, just got to look at my team's calendars to make sure when people are available. The second one is electric acoustic guitar instruction techniques, and pedagogy and stuff like that. I will probably do that one because I like to do guitar and I have guitars here. I'll try not to make it a 2-hour view of my guitars, like me just showing you each one. This one's called Steve, this one's Frank, you know, that kind of thing. But what I'll probably also do for future ones is I'll put out, you know, Jason and I will put it together. Like, I'll be like, this is the topic, please insert your questions ahead of time here if you have specific things you'd like me to go over.
Yep, and I'll be sure to send that out in as much advance notice as I can, everybody, so that you can. We'll probably do it as a shared Google Doc, so you can just add your stuff on there as you want.
Yeah, so we'll do that one, and then the third one would be modern band classroom setups and practices, which there's a couple people that could probably do that one yet, and maybe we'll have a couple different people on that call on our end, and then composition and improvisation in your modern band classroom. And then finally, there's a tie for the last one, which is improving your live sound for your modern band ensemble. I know we're talking a little bit about that. We'll talk technology. Another one's approximation and scaffolding techniques. So I'm going to go through this and try to put them in order. There's a good chance that one of those we might get rid of just instead to have a prep for like a jam summit prep, so that you guys feel like you're ready for your jam fests. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because hopefully everyone's going to be at the jam fest this year, because I think I'm coming.
All right, that's fantastic. Yeah, we have 17. Okay, so everybody bear with me here. We have 17 bands signed up for the Orno site. So I'm toying around with an idea of maybe making that a 2-day event, believe it or not. So Scott, we need to talk about that. Yeah, because
How many do we have for another one?
Well, I don't know yet, but the idea of trying to have 17 bands function in one day is going to be not a great experience for everybody. So I'm trying. So Scott, we didn't get a chance to talk about that beforehand, so we'll chat. That's a surprise to Scott, but it's all cool. And we have seven bands signed up for the Southern site, which seven bands is fantastic. That's a great number to have for a great full day where everybody gets a chance to hear everybody and play and jam and have fun. So. But 17 is too tight for us. So I'm working with the University of Maine right now to see if there's a day on either side of the whatever that Wednesday is, to see if and then I need to reach out to some of you to say, could you come on a different day instead of Wednesday? So I'm trying to work that out ASAP, because I know that people have busing constraints and issues that they need to deal with and other schedules in their school. So I'm working on that diligently right now.
Wow, this seems so much more like, I feel like last year we didn't have any of this information until like 3 weeks before.
That's because you didn't. So I'm working on trying to change that.
I'm like, isn't this in May still, right?
Yes. It is in May.
I'm on vacation at the end of March that I don't even know where I'm going yet, you know?
I'm a bit of an eager beaver when it comes to this, but when I've got 17 of you that are going to be bringing busloads of kids, I want to make sure that it's a positive experience for everybody. So,
Jason, can I just
yes.
add?
Yes, ma'am.
If equipment is needed or requested,
Yes.
that be taken care of prior to
Yes.
the night before.
Yes, oh, absolutely, without a doubt. So my first goal is to see if the university can accommodate us for a second option. Then I'm going to reach out to all of you that are coming to the Orno site and see if we can come up with some sort of logical split, whether it's by grade span or whether it's by proximity or just availability. And then Diane, from there, I'll be sending out to see who plans on bringing what, so that we don't have to have 17 drum sets at a gig. You know what I mean?
Hey Jason, where was
Yes, ma'am.
where was it hosted? Last year. It was. I know it was at the university, but what performing venue?
Hauk Auditorium.
Okay, because I have access to the Hauk schedule.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. I called Laura Artesani today, and she was going to check the whole school performing arts room usage calendar, but she didn't get back to me today.
Yeah,
you have access to that?
Yeah, I have that.
Oh, Jen, let's talk. I'll call you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I realize that it may not be incredibly convenient for us to try to entertain another day there, but I'm just trying. Again, I'm working really hard to make this a positive experience for every kid that you're bringing to this, because they deserve to have some time and not, 17 minutes on stage. It's just that's not worth it for anybody. So
Can I just quickly say, so I have 4th and 5th grade for modern band, and my kids really love being able to hear some of the those like older middle and high school students. They were pretty inspired by getting to hear the older ones. So I understand why you might want to divide things up by age, but we actually found my kids were pretty excited about hearing the older ones.
Great feedback, Melissa. Thank you. I will definitely take that into account.
Everyone was so positive towards each other's groups. I loved it. Like the older kids loved and cheered on the younger kids and vice versa. So that's my worry, Scott, is that with 17 groups, we're all going to be so crammed for time and schedule. It's too many. I agree. We don't do them with 17 groups.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Yeah, like 8 and 8 is great, or 8 and 9, I guess.
Yep. So I'm gonna be reaching out to some of you to see about a split. So if you want to look ahead to your May calendar and see if you have flexibility depending on what you have for school activities, that would be great to know ahead of time. For those of you that are coming to Orono, if you're coming to USM, we've got 7 bands and it's fantastic. That's a great number for us to have.
I want to reiterate how much I love this. So it sounds like we currently have 24 bands signed up for how many Maine Kids Rock teachers do we have?
Between 35 and 40. So we've got a good majority of everybody that wants to come on board.
That's ridiculous. Like in Chicago, we'll have maybe 35 schools performing at the Jam Summits, but we have 150 schools that are, So it's like the percentage in Maine, the percentage of teachers that are involved in Maine is higher, I think, than any of the other cities we work with.
Sure, absolutely. The ones that we have on the roll for Maine Kids Rock and that are actively participating is an incredibly high percentage. I'm very pleased by that.
Me too. All right, so anything else, or should we, I'm happy to take any other questions, or we can adjourn.
Okay, before we all roll out, I just have 2 things that I want to share with the group. The first is, well, first of all, thanks, Scott, for being here to lead this first one. That was awesome. And thank you all for taking the time to be here. I hope this was helpful and informative. The applications for next year's is going to be the link for that is going to be in the newsletter tomorrow that I send out in the morning. So if you have any colleagues in your district that you want to bring on board to the Maine Kids Rock family, or in neighboring districts, or just colleagues of yours from around the state, and they're wondering what's going on with this, that application is going to open up tomorrow, and I'm going to be taking applications through the end of February. So they've got a whole month to talk with their administrators, talk with their district supervisors, curriculum coordinators, et cetera, and see if this is something for them. So if you could spread the word on that, that would be fantastic. And if somebody doesn't get a link to the application because they're not on the newsletter listserv and they'd like to have it, just send me a note with their email and I'll send it to them directly. The second thing is super exciting. So Diane, going back to something at the very beginning when we were talking about expanding the Maine Kids Rock family, last summer, you'll remember Diane and others that were at the summit in Colorado. Mark Wood performed for us with Laura Kay, his wife, in the Electrify Your Strings program. We're bringing Laura and Mark and Laura's choreographer Nathan to Maine for a 2-day workshop at the end of October. And so we're trying to expand our Maine Kids Rock reach into our orchestra programs around the state. So we want to make it a great experience for those that have established orchestra programs, but we also want to appeal to those that maybe used to have an orchestra program or have a few string players in their school and they'd like to expand it out. Mark and Laura are going to come for 2 full days. The dates for that are going to be October 29th and 30th. It's a Thursday and a Friday right before Halloween. And I don't have a location yet, which I know you probably think is insane that I've got a 2-day workshop with 300 students and their teachers and everything all booked, but we don't have a place yet. But I have a few schools in mind that I'm reaching out to that I know have the facilities to be able to accommodate this type of experience. So if you have some string players in your building and you would like to bring them to be part of this experience, there will be more information forthcoming. So you're the first to actually hear about it officially, that we're having Mark Wood's Electrify Your Strings program, Electrify Your Orchestra. They're going to be coming in October, which is really, really awesome. So
we have an ASTA chapter here in Maine, and I'll try to get the contact information for you.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great, Charlie. I've been reaching out to them. I've also been talking with Linda Valancourt, who's Linda's the orchestra VP for the state. Yeah, so Linda's aware that Mark and Laura and everybody's coming. So this is going to be for orchestra, and we're also going to expand out and invite vocalists to come be with Laura and her choreographer for 2 days as well. So that may help some of you that have some students that maybe want to explore the vocal component of Maine Kids Rock. We're trying to make that happen as well. So that's going to be a two-pronged thing in October, and it's going to culminate with an absolutely awesome rock show. So if you I will send you all some links to Mark Wood's stuff if you want to whet your appetite with it or spread it around. That's going to be something really exciting that we're looking forward to in October.
Yeah, Dave and I had dinner with him and Laura at NAMM a couple weeks ago and talked about this. So this is really exciting. I didn't realize he was coming to Maine.
Yeah. Yep. First time coming to Maine. We're super excited about it. And it'll be of no charge to come to the experience because the department is going to write a grant for it. So the only thing that you'll have to cover will be probably food for your kids and transportation. We're gonna cover the cost of the whole experience. So
awesome.
Hey, Jason.
Yes, ma'am.
Dates again?
October 29 and 30. It should be a Thursday and a Friday.
If you pass the information on, both Linda and I can post it on the String Teachers Facebook group in Maine.
Brilliant. I will.
And will it only be open to Maine students?
Yes.
Okay.
And public school students.
Okay.
We have to. That's a department thing.
Okay.
So right. So if you have homeschooled students that are string players, unless they're part of your program curricularly, then we're going to have to pass on that. But if you have kids that are in your school that play strings, even if you don't have a string program, if you're willing to come with them, and then that, or a teacher is willing to come with them, then that's awesome. We're totally game for that.
Okay. There was another thing. Are we going to connect with the Maine Arts Commission or what's the other organization for the arts?
Specifically?
Oh, I can't remember her name.
I'm muted. Maine Alliance for Arts Education.
Susan Potters. Yes. Yeah.
I'm involved with that organization as well.
Because Susan's been working for years. I met with Rob and her last year, Rob Layman from the USM, to talk about amping up strings in the state.
Yeah. I have not reached out to the higher ed institutions yet, and I'm not sure if Susan and I have had about 4 phone conversations this week. So I'm not sure if I mentioned it to her in any way, shape, or form. But our goal is definitely to involve the USM and UMaine in this endeavor as well. We're taking on the heavy lift of getting the event organized and getting it paid for. But we'll also be looking for partners to join us in making that happen as well. So perhaps we can have some university students come help us during that time in terms of just the logistics of making the experience happen. Because we're looking at upwards of 300 kids coming to be part of this, which would be really awesome. So another experience, another opportunity for our kids, which is what we're all here for. Other than that, I don't have anything for the good of the order. Anybody else?
Nope.
Okay, thanks again, Scott. I appreciate it. I'll be in touch, everybody, with the link to this video and whatever we flesh out for a schedule for sessions coming up, I'll get that out to you ASAP, as well as some detailed information about the Electrify Your Strings program at the end of October.
Awesome.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.